right, welcome, and glad you are here. I'm just going to say a couple of words before I jump in. I was diagnosed actually just a few months before that Detroit conference. So it was an amazing gift because I am a 45-minute drive from there. So I attended my first conference within a few months of being diagnosed. It was amazing. The people there were wonderful. Any of you who are thinking about conferences, I highly recommend it. And yeah, Melissa and I met, we talked, we saw some needs, we developed some ways to address those needs. We've been working together ever since. It has been amazing. It has really been wonderful. I started about a little over 3 years ago running a group on Wednesdays for ADA, which is populated with people married to us. And I know at least one of them is in the room. I'm really glad to see you. And it has given me so much insight into the sort of communication challenges that we have, which expand out from relationships with a life partner to work, best friends, clients, customers. Any relationship you have really is going to be impacted by some of the things that I'm going to be talking about. So I'm trying to draw a really large frame. My experience base is years and years of teaching college level philosophy, religious studies, where we get to play with a lot of deep issues and ask a lot of questions. So I've learned a lot about communication. There are certain things that I want to point out today about communication and how ADHD challenges it that aren't always the ones in the books. All right. So one of the things I've enjoyed most about leading groups is that we get to talk about the one-offs, these strange things that my partner does this, or my buddy does this, or my boss does this. And those are some of the things that I'm going to want to bring to you all tonight. All right. So onward. If the page will turn, there it goes. No, there it doesn't go. All right, how do I get to page 2? Hang on. This is supposed to be seamless and it's not. There's page 2. Have you heard these before from friends, partners? Why are you lying to me? Why do you lie so much? Why do you say one thing and do something else? Are you even listening to me? And you make commitments and you don't keep them. Things like this. There are a lot of others. I just pulled out some that I thought were pretty representative, right? Some stories around this that I want to give you because I'm going to take these stories apart a little bit later in the presentation and address what actually happened in these conversations with some of the things about ADHD that I find to be complicating. In the partner group, I was talking to a woman whose husband had told her, hey, I'll return this DVD back to the red box. A lot of you guys know red box, it's rental. And she called him 5 PM. Have you returned it? I'll return it tonight. She calls him at about 7. Have you returned it? Not yet. Calls him at 10. Yes, I've returned it. And of course, the next morning, it's sitting on the front seat of the car. This to a non-ADD person looks like you lied to me. Why did you lie to me? And I've got to admit, I think they're right. It sounds like a lie. So this is one of the stories that I want to talk about later on. Second story was after my diagnosis, I started talking to my friends about, what in my behavior has driven you crazy over the years? And one of my friends said, it's not unusual for him to be talking to me on a Monday and say, where the hell were you all weekend? And I'm truly puzzled and astonished and confused. What are you talking about? And he'll say, well, Wednesday when we were on the phone, you said, let's do something this weekend. So I sat around all weekend waiting for you. And he's now upset. I'm hoping that some of you all are nodding your heads and you've gone through this before. The last time, did you take out the trash? One of the local guys, we were talking about household chores, and his wife asking him, weekly, did you take out the trash? And now some weeks it seems like, oh, thank you for reminding me. That was very helpful. I really like that reminder. And some weeks it's, why are you nagging me all the time? Of course, I'm going to take out the trash. It's a Wednesday. This is very confusing to people, as you might expect, but it's not uncommon. And I think a lot of us experience it. The other analogy I think of this is when you're driving and your partner says to you, look out, did you see that? And half the time you're going, oh, thank you, I didn't see it. And half the time you're going, of course I saw it. I'm driving. Why are you insulting my skills as a driver? These are some of the things that I think complicate our talking with friends, partners, colleagues, etc. And that's what I'm going to try to talk through in these next handful of slides. All right. So how do we typically think communication works? Somebody has something to say. They say it. We hear it. We understand what they said. Wouldn't that be great if that's how it worked? All right. What actually happens? They have the message, but it's complicated by both of our background assumptions. First off, what are they talking about when they say, could you bring me the box? Well, we unpacked a lot of stuff today. Which one do you mean? What does it mean for you to ask me for help? Do I assume that means that you don't want to do it, that you can't do it, that you think I should be doing it? My mood, both the speaker and the listener. What kind of mood are we in? Am I overwhelmed? Am I right on the edge? Do I have so much going on that I can barely take on one more task? How are you feeling? Are you feeling like he said no the last 3 times, this time better be a yes? Okay. So many things hidden underneath the surface that we're not aware of. Our histories around the topic. All right. Topic like, we said we were doing something this weekend and then we didn't. Well, if I'm used to that and I'm very flexible and I'm, hey, whatever. And if my buddy is always having people cancel on him and dump on him, we're going to have 2 really different investments in this conversation. Okay. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of the things going on in his head, in his world, when he says, I thought we were going to the movies, and all the things going on in my head, completely different universes. And this is something that, comes out of my philosophy training. We, to some extent, all exist in our own universe. And if you watch The Matrix and things, filmmakers are playing with that whole concept. It goes back pre the Greeks, but we are to some extent in our own world all the time. And so communicating across that divide can become tricky. And that is among our neurotypical friends, partners, coworkers. That's not even dropping the ADHD into the picture. Those are just things that go on in communication in general. All right. So we'll bracket that. And I'm going to add one more piece here that I'm not going to go into in depth, but I found both of these really helpful too. One of the reasons that our conversations can become very hard to follow is that this is how we do it. Danny Donovan, who, if you don't know, look her up. She's really, really good at putting these, a lot of our sort of behaviors and charming quirks into visual form. Non-ADHD storytelling, start the story, end the story. The way we do it, all over the map. Just like Bill Keene's cartoon, the kid is walking from the bus stop to home, and you can see where he goes. This is sort of the way we often go through life, and it can be puzzling and frustrating to people who are dealing with this. I'm not spending a lot of time on that topic. I just love the cartoon, so I like to share it with people. How does ADHD complicate these things? And there is a list. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on all of them because I want to be able to, Melissa and I do a little back and forth and even get your questions. If you have questions or comments, drop them in the Q&A chat. Some of the things that I've noticed going on for myself, for guys in the groups that I talk to, and for people who live with us, we complete each other's sentences in our head. They'll start on a topic and we'll fill it. We're off to the races. We'll fill in the rest of the they can stop talking. We will fill in the rest of the conversation with where we think it's going. And I guarantee you, the odds of getting it right are not 100%. Second point, we listen to what we find interesting, not what's important. If I'm talking to a friend of mine and he's talking about we're making vacation plans and he's really worried about the hotel and the airplane, but he mentions at the beginning, we're going to see the Grand Canyon. I'm gone. All I heard was the Grand Canyon, and he's going on and on and on about the plans. I'm not hearing any of that. RSD, the rejection sensitivity, I think is always our partner, and we always have to be watching for it. If I say, hey, why don't we take I-80 out to New York? And my friend says, nope, I think we should take 975 to whatever. I'm often not going to hear that as an alternate suggestion. I'm going to hear it as a, nope, your idea was terrible. This is how we really should be doing it, right? So keeping an eye out for that. We time travel. We engage in magical thinking. This is probably the most controversial thing on this slide, so I got to explain what I mean. What I was saying about us being in our own world, right? Using that example of the guy who said he had returned the DVD and he hadn't, I call that time travel. I know I'm going to do it. I haven't done it yet. I'm going to do it tonight. I'm going to do it in the next couple hours. So it's as good as done. So if someone asks me, I can say, yeah, I've already done it. Okay. We didn't already do it, but I am out there 6 hours ahead where I've already done it. Now it's in my rearview mirror. The magical thinking sort of thing. A lot of times, and again, check this against your own experience. A lot of times I will be talking about things the way I want them to be or the way I wish they had been, as opposed to the way they actually are. This is not being delusional or psychotic. Everybody puts their own spin on things. There was a great book called Idiot Brain, came out 7 or 8 years ago. And it's not just ADHD people that do this with memory and those kind of things. But we can often talk from the position we wish we were in, not the position we are in. We verbally process. This was my buddies taking, hey, let's do something this weekend as a commitment that we were going to the movies. You'll see this, not all ADHDers do it, but those who do are really good at it. It's sort of word vomit. People will say, you know, talking and talking and talking, which leads to oversharing, no boundaries, blurting, no filters. Conversations with us can be really, really overwhelming to people who don't have the same kind of wiring. If you're in conversations with ADHD folks, you'll notice we can be on 6 topics at the same time and we're fine. We're fine. We just jump, hopscotch, move back and forth. This doesn't work for everybody.
Just to interject with you, Mike, on that is, you know, when the other person's on the same 6 topics, they like Star Wars, you like Star Wars, there's a quote, and they're bouncing between Star Trek, Star Wars, right. You know, when you're nerding out, it can be a journey.
Exactly. Because you're learning so much. It's the nonlinear going through it. You know, you're picking up all these other things on the way. Social cues, we all know that we are not great at reading body language, at knowing when someone says something, are they being sarcastic? Are they sending us a message under the covers? Is there something else going on? And when we start guessing and the RSD comes in, we're going to start imagining negative things as opposed to just asking. So social cues. And then finally, this is one that, again, I don't think neurotypicals quite got. And a lot of ADHD people I talked to did not understand this until, again, I asked them, check it against your own experience. Often for us, writing something on our to-do list, it's now gone. It's off my mind. I'm not thinking of it. It's as good as done, which is clearly not how this works. And, you know, clearly not how this works. There's no groceries in the fridge just because I wrote the list, you know.
You look like you hit a nerve over here. I lost a lot. I'm reading from the chat. I lost a lot of relationships with new people because they take our sarcasm or humor as an attack and embarrassing. But for myself and my family, it was kind of how we showed love and acceptance. And I thought that these new people would feel a part of the group. And I have to say, in my family, there was something similar with maybe in jokes or maybe or other people's family where they kind of poked at each other. And then that doesn't always fly in other situations.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I one of the bullet points that I had thought about, but I didn't get down, was family history, because you're exactly right. And again, that is not just ADHD, but a lot of folks that I've talked to have that sort of thing. A lot of bantering back and forth family versus a quiet, reserved family. And what's really awful is this then gets laid at the feet of the ADHD. That this is not just the way we grew up and what we're used to, but that this is your ADHD acting up. Could you please pull it back a bit? So I stopped the slideshow only because that kind of lays out the basics. And then from there on, I'll try to apply some of those ideas to some of the stories, but I just wanted to see how it's landing for folks.
I see a few things in the chat like, oh my God, about adding things to the to-do list. I loved how you said it, just because it's on the grocery list. The fridge isn't full, and spot on. Yeah, there's a lot of agreement about the to-do list.
Yeah. I did a one-man show some years back, and in the slides, I had projected slide decks. I had a list of 5 things, and everyone that you crossed off, and again, I think you guys will recognize this, everyone I crossed off shrank font. The other ones got bigger. And then you cross off another one, it gets bigger. It's like when we finish things on the list, they don't count anymore. They're not an accomplishment. The ones we didn't get to are the ones that are sticking in here. They get bigger and bigger and bigger. So yeah, the list, yep.
Yeah,
Antonio,
it's interesting how that negative thinking that we're continually vexed by that which we didn't do, but we have no recall for what we did do.
Exactly. I have found over the years that one of my favorite time management tools, and like most of you guys, I've gone through a lot of them. One of my favorite was Post-its, because when I finished a task, I moved the Post-its to the back of the spiral notebook. And the thing ends up like this thick after a couple of weeks. We really don't pay enough attention to the things we're accomplishing. I would suggest that to anybody that's wrestling with that. Write down a list, because a lot of times you'll start the day with like 3 or 4 things you want to do. You get to the end of the day, you've only done 2, but you've done 45 other things that you hadn't thought about. So yeah, definitely having a completed list. Yes. Really helpful for your self-esteem too. What is on screen now? No, right now, just us, but I wanted to go up to Antonio's point just really quickly. So the to-do is not helpful. No. It's not that it's not helpful. It's just that you have to use it in its proper place. You know, it's a reminder. I'm still going through my 50th iteration of to-do lists, because forever I would conflate long-term projects, short-term projects, make sure you take a shower today, and have them all on the same list. So I'd have like 100 things per day. So learning how to handle your to-do list is really the key. Yeah. So my friend's behaviors.
I love this, what I see in the chat. I think my girlfriend has some of these behaviors, but I don't think she has ADHD. These characteristics might be due to other causes.
Yes.
Skip. A film reference that does. How many other people have seen Rashomon in this room?
Yes.
But 3 of us at least. Yay. Yes. But that is a thing from multiple perspectives, and it's like 7 different stories almost.
Exactly. Yeah, some TV shows did that too. I remember, I think 30 something or 20 something. It's a great episode. Yes. This is another thing, Seth, you bring up something too that, again, this is slightly off topic, so I'm going to talk through it quickly. The whole, everyone's got a little ADD stuff, Yeah, no, you'll see these things in other folks. These are not exclusive to us. We're just so much better at them. We are so good at it, but right. No, not everything can be dropped on ADHD. Planners, Lola, to your point, absolutely. They have helped me so much, but the biggest advice I'll give you guys is when it stops working, go on to the next one. Don't feel bad. Don't regret it. Don't beat yourself up, because we're all about novelty, recreating ourselves, finding a new path. So when it stops working, go to the next one.
Mike, Diane McLean had come and she has a strategy that's somewhat unique, I think, but I really like it. She has 4 or 5 planners, and when one gets boring, she just goes back to a different one. So she rotates between these ones that work for her. Sometimes other people say, hey, what if you just made one little tweak, would it get better? So for example, if you started using alarms using, let's say, Siri or some other tool, and then you ignore them, they're not working anymore. What if you change the sound? What if there were only alarms for 1 thing per day or 3 things per day? So when you notice it's not working, make some sort of adjustment to tweak it.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing I found with moving from system to system, and again, we're slightly off topic, but I think that's okay. I hope, Melissa, because I think sharing any information is always good. The other thing I found is that as I move from one system to another, I have learned not to drag that whole backlog into the new system. And that was incredibly, I will drop dozens or hundreds of things, ideas for a song, ideas for a blog post, a recipe that I want to try. I will drop hundreds of things when I move to a new planner that I would never let go of just because.
But see, that magical thinking thing that you had in there that was sort of the ADD thing, it's sort of like we'll put the Taj Mahal worth of building project, but really we kind of just need, I want to say, a backyard shed. We only need it to do X, Y, and Z, but we think of all the other things it could do, then it gets to be too big. So I like how you take an opportunity. Oh, I got rid of that planner and the Taj Mahal went with it.
Yep. There is a story that crosses that intersection between the to-do list and the communication. And hopefully you guys will be able to recognize this and use the learning I got from it. Some months ago, my wife had wanted to get a book on tape, right? And so she could just listen to it. So she was going to join Audible, buy the book, listen to it. Oh, no. I was going to go to the library, download it, rip it, build a software for her that she could index all of them and then carry it around, because I don't like being at the mercy of Audible $7.99 a month. So like you said, a little thing and then turning it into this huge thing. That's what I think all of us are susceptible to. And we got to learn to manage it. Communication, when I said, no, here's what I'm doing. What I thought I was saying was, I am freeing you from the shackles of a software company. And what she was hearing was, I just want to read the damn book. So even those, those differences in worlds and in ambitions, all of that stuff. Yeah, you got it's all just so important to try to say, I don't have to be right all the time. Let me see, where are you coming from? What are you saying? What do we really need? And then the other trick that I'll recommend to any of you with communication is step back, take a pause, just say, I'll get back to you in a half hour. I'll get back to you tomorrow. I have found so often that the next morning, or even after walking out to the car and back, everything looks different. I think that's part of our engagement. I think it's part of the way we interact with people. So even just stepping away for a minute often gets you surprising amount of perspective.
It is the #1 best strategy. If you can find ways to help yourself pause, I think we'll come back to it probably 2 or 3 more times depending on what else is in your slides.
Yes.
The pausing to calm yourself down, re-engage the part of your brain that's thinking and not just emoting or hurt. Listening. And that's the other thing I hear in the story that you told about the book is the requirements. Your wife's requirements were Audible and book, right? Audible account and book. And your requirements were Audible's how'd you use shackles, right?
That's right. Yes, exactly. Yes, shackles.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I want to own that book. I don't want to be renting it from them for a bunch of money. I'm going to bring I'm going to slide back because there's not a lot more slides in here, you guys, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to try to apply some of the ideas that I put in that bullet list to those stories. Okay. So again, this one came out of the partner group some years ago. Why did he lie to
Can we
me?
take one second thing? I just want to
Oh,
read something else from the chat, which was
for sure. For sure.
to avoid overwhelm, a friend suggested I have a visual of only 2 tasks that I need to accomplish next and avoid looking at a big long list. Yeah, because a long list can be overwhelming. And then you probably are doing 15 other things that you didn't write down too, which is what we had said earlier.
Yeah.
But that idea of limiting what you write down, that you might have feelings around that list, to make the list doable. I'm sorry, Mike, go on.
No. And you reminded me of something else. The another a corollary to that I saw was I try to have, here's my 2 or 3 things, and then another place where I can jot down, these are things I am not doing right now, because when they bubble up in the back of your head, they become very important, because that's what's in my head right now. So I have also developed a habit, not all the time, but I try, of writing down, this came up, I'm not doing this right now, so that I can actually see it and it goes away. This observation, I think, can be really helpful, and that'll come up again later in the deck. There's not a whole lot of slides left, but
so RSD, what's the D? What's the
rejection sensitivity dysphoria. Rejection sensitive dysphoria is the official term that Dr. Dodson coined. And so the lying, when she called him and said, did you return the DVD yet? He is hearing, I know you're incompetent. I doubt you did it. I can't count on you for anything. So I'm going to keep calling you until you tell me that you did it. And clearly not what she was doing. I mean, often, people are trying to be helpful, for one thing, and just to know, did the darn thing get returned? Not that it's an attack, and not that, oh, I can't trust you for anything. Sometimes, believe it or not, people are just asking. But when the response is, yes, I did, and you actually didn't, I'm sorry, when you get called out as lying, you kind of got to accept that. Yes, I lied to you. And that's a hard thing to say, because again, check this against your own experience. I think we will spend so much time explaining why it's not quite a lie. I was going to just own it. Just say, you're right. I shouldn't have said that I did, and move on. So the time traveling, again, I know I'm going to do it soon. Therefore, I might as well say I've done it. Magical thinking, I'm going to do it. So I'm just living in the reality in which I've already returned it. And I don't know if any of the others.
There's that thing where it feels like nagging. If you've been called 3 times, did you return the thing to Redbox? And you think, if I could stop this nagging by saying it's done. Yes. And then I really, really have to do it. But you still have this ADD. And if you didn't write down to do it, or you have no reminder to do it, or you're still in the wishful thinking that it's going to happen. I mean, if you say I'm paying that bill like ING, you better be online paying the bill.
Yes. If it's present tense. Yes. This reminds me too of the article that came out a few years ago about freeze, flight, or fib. That sometimes we will tell what they want to hear just as a self-defense measure. I don't need the hassle. I don't want to be attacked. And I feel bad that I haven't done it yet. I feel guilty I haven't done it. Here's another thing I failed at. The article was Monica Hassel and I think Barb Hudson had written it. Barbara somebody had written it. And it was geared towards kids. Why do my kids lie to me? But everything in that article just spoke to me directly as an adult who has possibly told a tiny little white lie every now and then. But a lot of times it's reflexive self-defense. And I think knowing that, knowing that these are where they may come from is helpful, not just to the person you're talking to. Your boss says, did you get that report in? You say, oh, yeah, because it's on your computer and you're almost done. Well, you really shouldn't be saying yeah. All right, that was the first one. The second one, my buddies, hey, you say one thing, you do something else, you make commitments. I sat around all weekend waiting. The verbal processing is part of it. The blurting, no filtering. I have learned, and I have trained my friends that unless we put a date, a time, and a location on it, just assume I'm thinking out loud. And it's actually worked. It's been 4 or 5 years. We don't
So that
pick up.
was the thing where you altered your environment. You looked out to these people. These are not people you've never met before. You're never going to see. They're people who are in your life all the time.
Yes.
And you say, hey, hear me this way.
Yes.
And that you can kind of change the universe,
Yep.
your universe to accommodate you more. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's brilliant.
I think too, what's important about that too is to keep it at the level, not of you're accommodating my ADHD, but we'd put it at a level of, oh my God, I didn't know that's what you were saying. Oh my God, I didn't know that's what you were hearing. So it became not them accommodating me. I felt just as much like I'm accommodating them. And I think that's another important thing, is to keep this power dynamic out of these things. We are both realizing something about our communication styles and adapting our styles to communicate better. I am not tolerating their neurotypicalness, and they are not tolerating my ADHD. We are finding common ground between our communication styles. And I think that's an important thing to have underneath that too. Because then it's not like I'm asking a favor. It's like we're equals meeting on common ground.
Right. This is what works for me. This is what works for you.
Yep.
And we are long-term. We have history. This is, we're living, our relationship isn't going anywhere.
Right.
There's a couple things in chat I'd like to read out. So
yes, please.
You want to put any, this one's really lovely. Sometimes I ask my partner to remind me that I asked them, so that I don't feel nagged, which is really helpful, because sometimes we'll ask our partner to remind us, they remind us, and then we yell at them.
Yes. Yes. Yep. It's a thing.
What are you telling me to go to bed for? Well, you told me you wanted to go to bed at 10. Aren't I helping you?
Yep. And I just know how frustrating that is. Yeah, I've been there plenty of times. And also got, nope, I'm not going to remind you because I know what happens. Right. That's a great one. Was there more?
There is one I want to table until later, but I want to say it out loud so we can remember it, which is any tips for making sure we get our exercise daily, that happens.
Oh gosh. Okay. Yeah. Yep. I can do that.
And there's something great about blurting out an honest answer, and you don't understand the social dynamics, that maybe a correction wasn't really required there or desired. I think we should start a PR firm for ADHD people to deal with neurotypicals. Please speak to my spokesperson or neurotranslator regarding that issue.
My anger translator, like the SNL skit. The blurting. So this was interesting too. A couple of years ago, I got really, really upset with person A giving advice to person B. I won't say who. But so I went and I watched a bunch of YouTube videos about what's the difference between giving well-intentioned advice versus nagging versus trying to control the other person. And none of this was around neurodiversity, ADHD. These were just communication skills. And I must have watched a dozen videos and read, I don't know, another dozen articles. And every single one of them said, don't give unsolicited advice. Every single one of them. And I just found that to be so relieving, because now it's not the ADHD. It's just that just don't do it. Because I was so much hearing when things like that came to me, I was hearing that as, well, I'll help you because you have ADHD and I don't, so I'll help you out. And regardless of whether that was true or not, I didn't want to hear it. So anyway, that's kind of a side thing, but that first one is critical. I've told both my wife and my daughter, I've said, if there are days when you see me, behaving oddly, you are free to say, Dad, did you take your meds today? Because I know that we're not good self-observers, and having somebody else giving them permission to say that. But you're right. I've also said, and you can remind me that I said that was okay.
I really love that giving permission. I've been in conversation with people and I'll just say, boss me. Now this is your permission. Just tell me what it is. So I want to get it right here. Or alternatively, right, I'm listening, right? Or I came here to hear what you have to say, so that I'm paying attention a different way, which sets their expectation in mind. Yeah, I love that, where the permission it's right out in front. Yeah,
it's right out in front, and it just makes everybody so much more comfortable. And that also is the part where, you know, we have to own our behavior, but we also need to tell people what it is we need from them. And again, I really think it's important that this is not how are we conforming to these people's expectations. It's, you have expectations, I do too. Let's put them both on the table and come to a conclusion. I think that's really important, because it can be really easy to fall into a, fine, you just tell me what we're doing today and how you want me to talk and how you want me to be. And that's just good, not good for anybody. So, and the take out the trash one, I think, you know, you guys kind of get where we're going with this. I want to get to this. There's only, I think, 2 more slides. So what do we do about this, right? Well, number one is that we just have to own that this is how we exist. It's how we are in the world. It's not a personal fault. It's not a moral flaw. It's not a lack of willpower. It's just we experience the world and engage the world differently than the people around us. Something else that was helpful to me over the years was thinking about other chasms people communicate across: race, gender, class, disabilities, you know, all of those different things that to posit this is what a normal human looks like, and the rest of you guys should be shooting towards that model, or we accommodate you, is just insanity. I mean, humans are diverse. Yeah. I mean, humans are just diverse. This came out of my philosophical world. Humans are diverse.
Well, I mean, it implies there's a right way to be human, instead of all the humans are being humanish.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. There is not my other favorite thing to think about is that, you know, the word normal is, number one, it's a statistical term, not a moral term. Number two, it basically means average. And I don't view that as a goal. So even if I wanted to go in that direction, I wouldn't. There's baselines, and this is the important part about Own It, you guys. I do think there's baselines. We got to pay the rent. We got to dress ourselves. We got to eat. We got, you know, there are things that we all have to do. But past that, we have an awful lot of freedom to decide how we want our lives to be. And I think when people talk about the ADHD deficits and stuff, they're looking almost as, and some, I mean, I'm broad brushes because we don't have, you know, all kinds of stuff. Broad brushes, they're like, you can't do what the rest of us do, so we'll accommodate you somehow and we'll help you get, no, thank you. I got a house, I got a job, I got food, I got friends. The rest of this is up to me. I do not have to conform to this stuff. If I want to be in a relationship with my buddies, we agree about what does it mean when I say, let's do something this weekend. We agree who gets to pick the restaurant. We agree how late can I be before you guys start worrying about me. You know, and that's not in the presentation, but one thing I realize is that when people are upset that I'm late, never crossed my mind, they might be concerned. They might be worried. They may wonder if something's wrong. And this helped me be more on time. So I'll offer that to you guys because it was a good learning. That they may not just be angry and pissed off and why do we have to wait? They may actually be wondering if I'm okay. And so take that in when you're thinking about the whole being on time question. Sidebar, done. Get feedback. You know, we are not great self-observers. Ask your partners, ask your friends. I learned a lot of things by asking, especially my buddies and my mom. So what are you seeing? And they will have things.
I like how you, for example, this is you ask them and they will say that that your family can tell when you're not on your medicine, right? That was fascinating to me. You had mentioned that, someone else who was the neurotypical partner mentioned it, and it was like, oh yes, because the topic goes all directions, because there isn't a certain consistency, because there isn't maybe an emotional centeredness happening. But it's interesting, and that's another thing, self-awareness. Like, if you are taking medicine and maybe you want to check and see if people can notice. Do you notice? Are you noticing? Right? Because we're on the inside of the fishbowl looking out, and it's just our looking outness, and it sort of all looks the same-ish, right?
Yes.
And it helps us to get a better read on what is.
Yeah. It all looks normal, because I'm on the inside. It all looks normal to me. And then the other one that really has come out of, working with ADA, I have Ann Arbor group that meets twice a month. We do a couple of virtual groups, and just talking to other folks with ADHD, because there's not going to be worrying about judgment there. Number two is we spot these things in each other and can point them out and call them out. And you know that it's coming from a place of experience and living with it, not judgment and, oh, I heard that you guys blah, 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 but really comparing experiences and then strategies for, what do you do with that? What do you do when you have one of those moments? So the more you can engage with other folks with ADHD, online, in person, chats, Discord, whatever you do, it is helpful. I think, like with anything, thinking I'm the only one experiencing XYZ just makes it so much bigger than it really is.
But that pattern recognition that we are pretty good at, if I do say so, that seeing the other ADD, we kind of can, there is a way to learn from watching the other person, the other people in the room, how they're engaging, how, I've been to many a room where the person is having a realization in front of me. I'm having that inside me at the same time. So there's this transformation from being around other people on the self-discovery journey. So helpful.
There was somebody mentioned in the chat, I just popped it up to scan it really quick, Jim, about neurodiversity in other countries. One of the things that we have going on is I have a group in virtual reality, and we've been getting people from all over, a real strong UK contingent, Netherlands, 2 or 3 people from different African countries. One of the most interesting things to me was that I've had 3 different people from Brazil come through, and all 3 of them have said that neurodiversity, mental illness, disorders, all that, no stigma, no big deal. We just take for granted that everyone's different and weird, and we learn to live with it. That Brazil, I would not have thought. I guess I would have thought Australia or somewhere like that, But if any of you are interested in that, shoot me a note in the text or however you want to get in touch with me, because I think the more people that get exposed to that in other countries and how they're dealing with it, we've learned a lot from each other about tolerance and availability of meds, availability of diagnoses. It's really interesting. We've done, we are by no means, I think, the shining beacon, but we've done an awful lot here in the States with this topic. People in other countries are at different places. Some are really, really good at it. Some are just, nope, it's still stigma. My family won't even talk to me, things like that. So
there's a lot of cultural stuff around differences in every different culture, right? So
exactly right. That's exactly right. And families. I wanted this to be the last slide, and then we have just a few minutes. I don't know if we want to do questions or what, but one of the things I've been reading about lately, So again, my background is everybody has a different view of things, personally, culturally, historically, religiously, politically, philosophically. But those become, if you're not careful, the place that you work from. They become your default. They become your go-to. And I just ran across this term called default mode network, and have not read a lot about it, but I think it's exactly what I've been poking at. If you're not paying attention, a lot of your behavior can default to things you do automatically, what you learned with your family, what you learned at school, what you learned at your your church, your university, or wherever. And I have found people reflecting things back to me that I've said over the years that I don't in any way believe, but I must have been in a conversation with them and they're talking about something like, oh yeah, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Like, and they think I'm agreeing. To have something reflected back to you like 10 years later and going, I don't believe that. I don't think that. To me means I was not there. I was not listening. I was not speaking from myself. I was speaking from my default, the things I will say to be polite or to be social or to fit in. Maybe it's part of the masking thing. Maybe it's part of the imposter thing. I haven't analyzed it yet. But the one thing I do know about all of these is that the more present you can be to the conversations you're having, to the people you're talking to, even to yourself when you're taking a walk and thinking about things, the more you can get out of all those defaults that have accreted over the years and start thinking, who am I? Why am I here? What do I want? The better all of these things get. Because if you think about it, take blurting or take verbal processing. If you're paying attention, you're going to notice you've been talking for 13 minutes nonstop. If you're not paying attention, time just vanishes. If you're paying attention, you'll notice that you're saying something that you were taught as opposed to something that you believe. So being present, any of the mindfulness stuff that you're interested in or that you might be trying, it pays off. It absolutely pays off. This is the key to so much of this. And I think that is the last thing I wanted to make sure I said.